if, a woman asked, some fears are not really true, but we have them anyway? How can we recognize those fake fears and overcome them?
What a great question.
Yeah.
I love that question. Thank you for asking that question. What if all of your fears, what if you treated them like they were likely stories? Okay? Most of the things that I've ever worried about in my life never happened. I've spent so much of my life worrying about things that never happened. Now, if you live long enough, you kind of figure out that it's pretty unlikely to happen. And that's why I say likely story. There's some story in my mind that, oh, if this did that and that did that, then maybe this would happen. And what if that happened, then this would happen. Oh my God, right? It's a story. I'm the author of the story. It's my story. And it's like a little internal film that goes on in your head. And you're worried about things that are likely not to happen.
How to recognize them?
I'm going to talk about reality, agreed reality, and interim reality. Okay? Now, we can't really talk about reality right now in this show too much because it's a pretty advanced conversation. So we all live in an imagined reality. Okay? We have a story about reality. There's something called an interim reality, and the best way I can describe it to you is from a personal experience I had. And I've used this experience before on this show, so forgive me if you've heard this story. But I went to a national park with my dog one time to go camping many years ago. And when we got there, there was a sign at the park entrance that said, watch out for bears, right? Black bears. And there were brown bears and black bears, and they said the black bears are much worse than the brown bears. So this whole idea of bears was implanted in my mind. And then I paid my entrance to the park, and they gave you a little pamphlet. And in the pamphlet it said, make sure when you're camping to put your food away in a locked container so the bears won't get it, right? So again, the bears. Then I go to bed at night in my tent, and my dog is outside the tent and starts barking ferociously, so I stick my head out, and the dog is barking at something that's moving in the bush. What do you think was in that bush?
The bear.
Of course, right? Yeah. My whole body was reacting to a bear in the bush, right? For me, there was a real bear in a real bush. Now, was there a bear? There was. This is what I'm calling interim reality. So it turns out there wasn't a bear, because after I told the park ranger about it, he said, if there was a bear, your dog would be dead. And possibly you too, right? So there was no bear, and besides, there's no bear prints in the dirt, and if there was a bear, there would be a lot more disturbance than what happened, just a dog barking, right? But for me, and my heartbeat, and my adrenaline, and me looking for something to use for a weapon, there was a bear. Okay, and as real as that's as close as I've ever been to a bear. Okay, and there was no real bear there. Okay, so coming back to Sue's question, checking in with reality, is what it is that you're afraid of actually happening? I call it just being present, because what else is there? There's just being present. Is it happening right now? Or is it happening in an imagined future that is basically a story in your head that you made up? Maybe there's some, like there was a sign about don't feed the bears, well, bears, right? There's an interim reality that led me to create this story. Then the barking of the dog validated that my story was real, right?
Yeah.
So you may have things happening in your life that indicate that something bad is about to happen, and you may be prepared for this bad thing to happen, and then you may have people telling you, watch out for that bad thing that might happen, but is it happening? And if it did happen, are you prepared for it? I mean, I think that people don't really have a problem with what's happening. They don't really have a problem with what's happening. What's happening is just what's happening, if you can be present with it. You may not like it. You may be uncomfortable. You may wish that it was some other way. But if you just deal with what's happening, actually happening here and now, you're just dealing with what's happening. It's life. Life is happening. And it doesn't care whether you like it or not. It doesn't care whether life doesn't care if you're comfortable or not. And it doesn't care if you're afraid or not. So your fear doesn't change anything. And in relationship to human beings, I have observed that when you look at human beings through the sunglasses or the lenses of fear, all kinds of stories just spontaneously erupt. And all kinds of negative emotions and attachments begin to emerge. When you look at that same human being, you say you have the fear sunglasses on and you just take those off and you just look at them. You just see that they're just like how they are. They're just how they are. There's some good things and some bad things and some things you don't like and some things that you love. Now, if you take the sunglasses or the lenses of love, put those on and look at that same person, they look entirely different. Now if you look at that same person through the glasses of love, they change. You see, they couldn't change before because you were so afraid, because how you were looking kept them stuck in that. But when you allow them to be how they are, just loving them, you know, if you look at a child, you have a tendency to look at them with love, right? They're just children are lovable just because they exist.
Yeah.
Right? You just right? You feel a love for them. If they do bad things and they do bad things, you don't just all of a sudden start having fear or hatred. You know, you might like it or not like what they're doing, but your love is still there. So I suggest that whatever it is that you're fearing and worrying about, don't do what I called move away from, right? Be with the fear, be present, and see what's really happening. Is it really a bear, right? Or is it your story about a bear made up in an interim reality by all the signs around that said, watch out for bear, right?
Yeah.
Or is it just something that's happening and, you know, you can just deal with what's happening. And then, if you want to go a step further, look at it through the eyes of love and watch it transform and change right in front of your eyes.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.